Welcome, everyone. Good morning to those of you where it is the morning. That's the speaker is in Vietnam. I'm in India, so good morning. But I'm aware that there are people attending from all parts of the world. So good afternoon, a good evening to you, depending on where you are. So once again, I welcome you to this interesting webinar. This is part of a series which I shall describe now. Each month, the East-West Center Research Program presents the East-West Research Speaker Series. Through this series, we explore the environmental, demographic, political, and economic processes that are reshaping the Asia-Pacific region in profound ways. So as part of that, today's speaker is Dr. Duong Nong, a very close collaborator and a good friend of ours. Dr. Duong holds a position as a lecturer at the Faculty of Natural Resources and Environment in the Vietnam National University of Agriculture in Hanoi. He's also an alumnus of the East-West Center, and we are particularly proud of that, especially considering that now we are trying to have more collaborations between the center and its alumni. In 2010, Dr. Duong was awarded a scholarship from the National Science Foundation under the project, the Coupled Natural and Human Systems and Emerging Infectious Diseases. This allowed him to participate in the East-West Center Research Program and pursue his PhD in Natural Resources and Environmental Management at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, which he successfully completed in 2015. Dr. Duong Nong's current research primarily focuses on land cover, land use change analysis, and urban transformation within Vietnam and other Southeast Asian countries. Now, before I turn this over to Duong, just a bit of housekeeping instructions. Dr. Duong will speak for about 40 minutes, followed by a question and answer session. Please use the question and answer box to type in your questions, and I will convey these questions to the speaker. So without much ado, over to you, Duong.
So thank you, Dr. Sumit, for your introduction, and good morning, all participants. I'm very happy and appreciate that you spend your time here with me today, and thank you very much for your interest in my topics. So in the seminar today, I would like to share with you our initial results of the two research topics. The first one I would like to share is about mapping the urban density in Vietnam cities, the case study of Hanoi Urban District. And the second topic is about the socialist collective housing in Hanoi, its formation, transformation, and the future prospect. These two research topics are part of the project linking disaster risk governance and land use planning funded by the Federal Ministry of Education and Research within the framework of research for sustainability. So the outline for my presentation include the background, methodology, result discussion, and some remark. So let me start first with the background. After 1986, especially since Vietnam established the land law in 1993, when the right to use land as a kind of commodity was recognized, the urban renewal took place more vigorously and resulting in several changes in cityscape day after day. The private sector was allowed to participate in the housing development, calling for resources from abroad that made the urban renewal project so exciting, especially on we call gold land plot in the city center that had previously been public industrial or residential facility operated by and managed by the state-owned enterprise. So the structure shift in the economy greatly influence the housing production and urban development system. Hanoi is the city of more than 1,000 years old, and it is one of the oldest cities in Vietnam with a mixture of historical and modern patterns. So it's a very typical area to study the urban transition. During the recent year, Hanoi has witnessed many substantial transformations. The historical city center is seeing a massive densification of its urban fabric, as well as growth in terms of height of the building. In the case of the old quarter, for example, this trend had been accommodated by widespread demolition of traditional tube house. Many older structures, when not demolished, have been modified as well. So in addition to increasing the urban land that has implication for peri-urbanization, which is also the concern of many Vietnamese and foreign researchers. The urban growth on the basis of increase the compactness of existing built environment still lack of the theoretical and practical approach method. This lead to the arbitrary in each way of processing different projects from different developers. And sometimes managers and specialists in the field of urban architecture remain confused as they do not know how to comment or discuss the problem arising when they got too many opinions, multiple point of views, some of which can even be conflicting regarding the concept of density. So in this study, our objective is to explore the spatial expansion of built-up area from 1990 to 2019 by study the remote sensing data. And the second objective is to explore the population growth in the central urban district from 1999 to 2019 using the Vietnam population and housing census. And the third objective is to estimate the built-up density index at the commune ward level by linking the remote sensing data and population and housing census data from 1999 to 2019. The data used in our study include the satellite image in 4 different time steps, which is in 1990, 1999, 2009, and 2019. We apply the supervised classification method to derive the built-up area footprint for Hanoi urban district. And then we also combine with the population and housing census in 1999 and 2009 and 2019 to measure the built-up density for Hanoi urban district. So first, let us talk about the concept of density. The discussion surrounding the appropriate density of a city is perhaps as old as the discipline of the urban planning itself. And it can certainly be seen as one of the most controversial issues within this field. Density is usually expressed by using a fraction in which the number of objects is the numerator and the size of the reference area is the denominator. The table 1 in the slide provide an overview of the urban density indicators that are frequently found in research and planning practice. However, beyond this general understanding, the measurement of build density poses a couple of empirical problems that are positively correlated with the spatial level of the respective observation. Especially the property block or neighborhood level frequently lack the precise and up-to-date density value. The reason for this is that the data at the property or block level are usually not covered by the official statistical survey, such as a census. Those studies based on one owns data collection, for example, using the site visit or private geodatabase, have limited use due to their complexity or the lack of transparency in the data. So as the standard indicator you may often see in other literature is the floor area ratio, also referred to as the floor area density or floor space index. It is commonly defined as the amount of floor space a building divided by that building plot area. So again, the determining the floor area ratio is a complex task. Since official survey of building metrics, for example, floor number, volume or height data are typically not available. While many studies provide a range for building density figure at the level of selected building and development types, the results of this study are not really comparable, since various definitions of density are applied or the approaches to data collection are different. Fortunately, Vietnam is among few countries that have very comprehensive population and housing census data, which is available at the commune level. And in Vietnam, the General Statistics Office is in charge of the nationwide survey, which is conducted every 10 years since 1989. And the most recent population housing census we had here is in 2019, which collected various information on population and housing across entire Vietnam. So this data was gathered to support the formulation of economic and social development policies for the country and to monitor the sustainable development goal. And in this, in our study, so the built-up area, the built-up density is equal to the number of people multiplied by housing area per person and divided by the urban footprint, the entire urban built-up area. So here is our analytical framework that involves the mapping of built-up area with remote sensing data. Is a combination with population and housing census to derive the built-up density. Let me come to the result and discussions. So based on the mapping result from remote sensing data, we calculated the built-up area for each district and look into it 2 times. As though district in green box here, it had very little change in built-up area, though district are the urban core of Hanoi. And basically there is no room for built-up expansion horizontally. The remaining expansion is happening in surrounding district in terms of perimeterization, which in the red box. So the map of built-up area in Hanoi urban district in 4 different times was overlaid, and it showed that the built-up has expanded quickly since 1990, especially since the 1999 it is expanded to the west and the southwest of the old quarter and along the major transportation route. With regard to the population, change in total population is also happening mainly in the surrounding district, though as in the red box, the total population haven't changed much in the urban core district, which is in the blue box. As the government has policy and strategy to reduce and control population growth in these 4 urban districts until 2030. This program is implemented through a range of programs such as resettlement resident for development projects, relocated university, government office to periphery areas. And in terms of population density, 6 districts with the highest population density include the 4 urban core districts and another 2, which is Cầu Giấy and Thanh Xuân district. So using the GIS and census data, we created population density map for each commune's wards with the same scale and look into it over 3 time periods. And many communes have changed its density index as represented by the color from the green and dark green to yellow and red. So as I mentioned earlier that we use floor area per person as a parameter in our formula to calculate the built-up density index. So this figure shows the average housing area per person of each district in 1999, which ranged from 9 square meter per person to 14 square meter per person, and it's the lowest in Hoàn Kiếm, Gia Lâm, and Đông Anh district. In 2009, the average housing area per person has gone up a bit and ranged from 12 square meter per person to 26 square meter per person, and is the lowest still in Hoàn Kiếm district. In 2019, the average housing area per person go up and range from 20 to 40 square meter per person, and is lowest in Hoàn Kiếm district and highest in Tây Hồ and Gia Lâm district. So the floor area per person has increased quickly over the 3 time periods, which indicates an aspect of the success of housing development policy in Hanoi over the past 3 decades. Based on the floor area per person from the census combined with the population and area of urban footprint in each ward as parameter, we calculated the built-up density index for each ward and mapped them using the GIS. But in this table and graph, we average the value to the district level. So remember from my previous slide that the urban footprint and population is not changing much within the urban core district, but the built-up density of this district is among the highest one, and it is increasing quickly over 3 time periods, which is in the blue box, and also the urban density also increased quickly in other surrounding district as well. So here we overlaid 2 figures on the same graph. On the left-hand side here is the built-up area density, and on the right-hand side is the built-up area. So for those districts in the red box, you can see that the built-up area changed a little through 3 time periods, but their build-up density, which in the column is among the fastest growing. So we also created a build-up density map for each commune wards with the same scale and look into it through 3 time periods. Again, you can see that many communes have changed its build density index from the green and dark green to yellow and red over time. So regarding the trend in increasing build-up density, currently Vietnam City, there are a number of urban renewal trends which is associated with the increasing the urban density. The first trend is the renovation of old residential neighborhood, including the degraded housing replaced by new housing project. In this picture, the socialist collective housings C1 in Thành Công, which was built in 1974 to allocate to government officers. And in 2008, the building has sunk 1 to 2 meters from the surface and was assessed as structurally unsafe. In this situation, the resident was forced to resettle in other place for demolishing the old structure and building a new high-rise one. As you can see in the picture, this is the building which was demolished and replaced in 2008-09. The second trend is the transformation of former industrial estate into industrial park. The second trend is the transformation of former industrial estate or industrial park into the residential neighborhood, mainly in the form of new urban areas, depending on the scale of redevelopment project, which are normally large scale. So these industrial estate often use old technology and polluted surrounding area. This third trend is the transformation of existing public facility into residential neighborhood. This facility was operated in the past. However, they are no longer satisfy the current demand and become useless. The fourth trend is the transformation of the other specific spaces into residential neighborhood, depending on the original function of the transformed space. The corresponding type of residentialization will be established. So some of these new residential area have not been planned synchronously with the capacity of transport infrastructure, but increase along the major road. Therefore, it increased the traffic congestion due to high population density. And also in recent years, the price of the real estate market is rising, which makes the low-income people and migrant difficult to own apartment housings. Here's some example of temporary housings of migrant workers in Hanoi. And recently, Vietnam's government has put a strong emphasis on building social house with subsidized from government, targeting low-income family, government officers, military personnel, worker in industrial zone, household whose land is acquired for development projects. So with that policy, the city authority is expecting to solve the housing shortage for Hanoi residents. So let me conclude with some remarks on this, the first study. So the urban renewal process in Vietnam was always associated with the increasing the density by maintaining the density of the building and establishing the new high floor area ratio to gain more profit from the land redevelopment. For the sustainable and dynamic urban development, the control on the level of compactness will always be interesting and essential to secure the best efficiency of each district and the whole city. So let me move to the second topic I want to share with you today. The topic is the socialist collective housing area, which I briefly mentioned in the previous slide. The case study here is conducted in Thành Công Ward, Hanoi, Vietnam. We look into the formation, transformation, and the future prospect. So let me start with the introduction. The socialist collective housing area, or in Vietnam, we call Khu Tập thể. Hereafter, we abbreviated as KTT, which was built during the 1950 to the 1980, was a representative state-led housing development model, following the urban planning concept of micro-district introduced from the Soviet Union. In the past, the KTT was built for civil servants, state-owned companies, workers, and military personnel. And in the late 1980s, along with the market-oriented reform from the countries, the KTT was privatized, and the housing unit was sold at very low price to tenants who were already living in the buildings. So current user and buyer are mostly low and low middle income people, but there is generally a good social mix. So over time, many owners have changed their units' original structure by building extension to their homes to gain more space and privacy. The KTT have been severely degraded over time as well. And in Hanoi, the redevelopment of old KTT was placed on the policy table since 2000. So the aim of this our study is first to understand the process of formation and development of the KTTs, to analyze the morphological change of the KTT over time, and to understand the government, developer, and local people's perspective in upgrading and resettlement. The methodology used in our study, including the literature review, participatory mapping and observation, and in-depth interview with local government planner and local residents. Let me come to the result of our initial results. First is we look into the historical development of KTT. The KTT was built during 1950 to 1980 and can be classified into three generation. The first one go from 54 to 60, the second one from 60 to 75, and the third one is go from 75 to 1986. So since 1986, Vietnam has rapidly transformed from central planned economy to market-oriented economic system. And the shift in the economy greatly influenced the housing production and urban development system. And significant changes include the withdrawal of public housing subsidized and encouragement of private housing development. And the privatization policy of state-owned housing was introduced in 1994 and was implemented through the sellings of housing unit to sitting tenants. Many KTT still exist in major cities such as Hanoi, Việt Trì, Hải Dương, Vinh, Hạ Long, Nam Định, and Ho Chi Minh City. And they are generally 4 or 5-story walk-up apartment complex. So the first generation of KTT cover period from 1954 to 1965. These are mainly single-story block unit distributed along the path in the form of an alley. The studio are about 15 to 18 square meter, built mainly in brick and with separated bathroom and kitchen. So the second generation goes from about 65 to 75 and sees the development of the typical building in a maximum of 4-5 elevated floor. These buildings are distinguished by having shared kitchen and a bathroom on each level. At the distribution space, we have a version with an internal corridor and a more recent one positioned outside. And the rooms are about 30 square meter. The third generation cover period from 75 to 86, the year of the reform policy. Here, the service and shared kitchens disappear, and the housing units can reach up to 60 square meter. And the distribution corridor is moved outside, acting as a gallery. For the later two types, the concrete structure, prefabricated panels and brick are used. In terms of the special patterns of development of the KTT in Hanoi, when they was first built, the KTT located on the periphery of the city during the 1960 to 1980. However, due to rapid urban expansions, they are now part of the central area. So in terms of morphological change of the KTT, the ground floor unit was extended toward the street, often for small shop. And the upper floor resident built suspended balcony and occupy some common space such as corridor and as an additional living area. So the extension is happening in both vertical and horizontal dimension. So when the process of privatizing the common space of the ground floor apartment take place, the vacant space above is also occupied by the people on the upper floor. Just like the ground floor, the upper household also start their occupation by installing the iron frame for safety reason, then continuing to protrude. The cage could be extended 2 to 3 meters from the original wall with the support of metal frame. Here is another example of vertical expansion. So many building stock are severely degraded and unsafe. The two apartments in the picture is you can see here, the two apartments are leaning and leaving a big gap between two buildings and make a V shape. In some cases, residents have to consolidate the building structure with iron frame as in this picture. So in terms of social chains, many housing units are overcrowded. The individual units was originally designed for a nuclear family, but many residents are now living with their extended family member. In some cases, a family of 3 generations of 6 to 8 people share a space of 35 square meters. So chains are not only at the individual house, but also in the function of the common space. The ground floor is also the part of the metabolic nature of these social condominiums. They usually host activities such as kindergartens, dentists, grocery store, cafe, hairdresser, moped mechanics, and much more. Basically, everything you need to live at 0 kilometers. Although the KTT do not have a lift in its original project, the stair usually have a rise of 15 centimeters, therefore lower than the standard average. So this facilitates the ascent for those who live on the upper floors. And in some KTTs, they make a little ramp in the center or on the sides of the stairwells to drag heavy objects or even bicycle and moped to park in front of the house. The open space between the blocks are often used as the courtyard or garden, host leisure activities for children and adults. It is excellent place for socializing when the synergy between the private and collective space is celebrated. So we have studied some different perspectives in KTT upgrading and resettlement among the government and general public developers and local residents. From the government and general public's perspectives, according to our review, most KTT need to be cleaned up because they represent a negative image of Hanoi, therefore interfere with the urban development. And the second one is there is lack of fund from the government for redevelopment projects. And also the general public also worry about the planning scheme to redevelop the old apartment area. If it's done by developer, they are worried that they will maximize the use of land for commercial purpose. From the developer's perspective, they always want to maximize the use of land with higher density buildings for the profit. And there are not enough appropriate policy to deal with the complicated issue in most KTT. And it's also challenging for the developer to get an agreement from the local resident, as everyone is different. And they want the government to change the policy so that they can have more motivation to get involved in the redevelopment of the KTT. With regard to local resident perspective, residents are supportive with the redevelopment project initiated by the government. However, they also seem not happy with the decision-making process led by the government and the developer, as they mentioned that it is sometimes lack of transparency. And they most of them respond that they don't want to move to the outer suburb. And also they need a full commitment from both developer and local government regarding the stability of their everyday needs after the redevelopment. So the biggest difficulty for the investor is to get the consensus of the ground floor household. According to the city guidelines, after the upgrading, the ground floor cannot be used for living, but is reserved for public service and business in order to create income sources to compensate the investor for upgrading cost. Therefore, most households on the ground floor who is having their own business there right now, they want to be granted a lease for a shop on the ground floor for business, and want to know clearly how many years they can rent, and sometime and the time to adjust the rental price, etc. This is to ensure their benefit. And generally, residents ask for a better compensation plan with each of their new apartment, with which will be normally about 2 times larger than the old one. So residents who against the project usually live on the ground and first level unit of the building, as I said earlier. And it also took a number of years to finish the site clearance, as some residents, particularly those who live and doing business on the ground level, refuse to vacate and move out for the construction. So let me conclude the study with some point. The KTT are recognized for their historical, cultural, and spatial values, since they represent a specific era in Hanoi as urban history. The collective living quarter, unique architecture, influences from Soviet Union, North Korea, and China makes the ambience of Hanoi more pleasant. These structures are historically witness to the values that exist nowadays. The rehabilitation of large housing estate mean not only the reconstruction of building, but also the revitalization of local community and social life. The community characteristic that exist within a collective living quarter show how people interact with each other in everyday routine. Despite the differences in social status or financial condition, people did not hesitate to support each other. So whether to keep all of these buildings, keep some of them, or demolish all of them and replace by with the modern high-rise building, is a complex question and need a lot of discussion and study. So most of the household want to be resettled in flats in the same location instead of receiving compensations, money, or housing alternatives elsewhere. In fact, the population living in the KTT already has exceeded the standard of the initial planning by 1.5 to 2 times. So it raised some question to the city, such as how to reduce population density in the public housing area, while the majority of inhabitants want to be resettled in the same location. So what should the city do to not increase the population in upgrading project, but still ensure the profit for investor? So this all of my initial results for our study, and I am welcoming your comment, question, and discussion. Thank you very much for your interest.
Thanks a lot, Duong, for a very fascinating presentation on two independent but related aspects of urbanization in Vietnam, specifically in Hanoi. So good to see all those numbers also, but also the qualitative methods you used. So that was fascinating. And without much ado, I will open it up to questions. So right now I noticed that there are two questions that have been typed. So I encourage the audience to type in your questions. The first question, Duong, is that what is the situation regarding houseless people in Vietnam? Is there such a concept? How prevalent is it? What is the government doing about the houseless people?
Yes, as I mentioned that recently the government has put a strong emphasis on social housing projects for low-income people, migrant worker, and military personnel and government officers. So this policy has already implemented a long time ago, but recently the government put strong emphasis on that, and there are a lot of projects is ongoing, and the city is expecting that the housing for the migrant and who has difficulty in terms of housing low-income people like that will have access to more opportunity to access to housing in the coming years.
Okay, the second question is that is the horizontal expansion considered illegal? If so, what is done to, let's say, punish the people who are doing the horizontal expansion? Which is the agency responsible for monitoring and regulating the illegal horizontal expansion?
Yeah, in my opinion, yeah, of course, the horizontal or vertical expansion is of course, is illegal. So how the city or government control this problem? For the new residential area, it's easy to control this as there is the regulation at the beginning. However, in the old quarter, it is happening like you see, but it is very difficult because there is the lack of regulation policy regarding the management and control of in this KTT, in this our urban quarter, our urban housings.
Okay. So the next question we have is there a historic organization to affect development or conservation of the Hoa Kim district?
Yes, I think to my understand that in Hanoi also there are a lot of different ideas whether we should demolish the old structure and rebuild with the new one. But the conservationists also have a lot of concern and idea to raise that it also part of the historical aspect of Hanoi, and it represent historical times. So it is also important to consider to preserve some of this structure, how to rebuild it, how to maintain it, so that it still have its historical value, instead of diminishing all the structure and build with the new one.
Okay, thanks. Is there a current trend of some of your results in comparison with the other cities within the country? For, let's say, how does it compare with Ho Chi Minh City?
Yeah, in Ho Chi Minh City, I think there's, of course, there's a less number of old urban housings compared to Hanoi, as there are more than 1,500 more the KTT in Hanoi, but in Ho Chi Minh City, as I remember, 400-500. So, and the KTT in Ho Chi Minh City, in my opinion, it is less to the certain level of degraded like Hanoi, because it is the KTT in Hanoi is built much earlier, and so the problem in Hanoi is, I think, it's more difficult to solve than the other city in Vietnam, as for example, the outside Hanoi, there are also the KTT in other city like Vinh, Hải Phòng city, and other city. So they have land for the redevelopment, but in Hanoi it is a difficult problem, as the land price and also the population density, everything is more complex.
Okay, yeah, I have seen the KTTs from a distance. The next time I'm in Hanoi, you should take me for a closer look. The next question we have here is, how can cities with limited space and high population density maximize open space and the tree canopy?
Yeah, that is interesting question. And nowadays, I think the government, as you see that the city of Hanoi has expanded size since 2008. The size of the city has almost double, and it's take some nearby province, especially the Ha Tây province in the west of Hanoi, was included in to Hanoi city in 2008. So with that, to reduce the population density in the city center, the government has already come up with a lot of new redevelopment projects, such as a lot of new highway, ring road around the city has been built, and many new urban area is now established also out of the city, with very good access road to that compared to previous year. You may know that in few years ago, we have in Vietnam, we often heard the term that ghost city. It means that the city which is located far away from the urban center with those the good transportation route. But nowadays it has been improved, and a lot of new transportation route is built to make a good access to the outskirts of Hanoi. And the university government office is also moved to the out of Hanoi. For example, the National University of Hanoi, which is located in Cầu Giấy district, is now moving to the outskirts of Hanoi, which is about 40 kilometers. So all of these activity will have to reduce the population and the density, building density and population density and in Hanoi. And also in terms of the maintaining the green cover, Vietnam City also, the government also have a plan to reach the million trees in Hanoi City, and all of the new urban area and also the new road now is open, and also with the new tree are planted along the major route to improve the green area for the city.
Somewhat related to that, how is the increasing tourism in Hanoi affecting the urban development around the Hoa Kim Lake area?
Yes, in terms of my opinion, I think the tourism has impact a lot on the, of course, the density, and also the price of the house, because since it's the center, historical center, it attracts a lot of tourists and activities. So the people living in the old quarter really earning a lot of money through doing their business over there. So because of that activity, it attracts a lot of people and increase the population. Also, that is the problems when the government want to rebuild the structure there. Is already their old house for a long time ago, and they live there for many generations, and they now their livelihood is there. So it's very difficult to compensate, to negotiate with the people here to rebuild, and also to relocate these people to build the new structure for Hanoi center, the Hanoi, the old quarter.
Okay. There is a question about definitions. What is a collective?
The collective means that community living together, and they share some commons, like for example, in terms of collective housings, they share the not every household has their kitchen, has a toilet at the beginning, so they share the common space. They have many activities that together. So that's my understanding in terms of collective housing compared to modern housings. I hope.
Okay, we are almost at the end of the session, so I'll ask a quick question regarding definitions. When you say urban footprint, does it mean that in those calculations in the denominator, you're removing the area under the water bodies or area under agricultural lands within Hanoi?
Yes, when we mention the urban footprint, we actually it is all the built. We mean that all built up area, including the house, the road, the public facilities, and we exclude the agriculture, the river, lakes, for example.
Okay. Well, there's one more question that just came in. What were some of the historical urban planning failures, and what will change in the future designs?
Thank you for these questions, but I don't really have much knowledge on this issue to address your question, but I'm happy to look into it and share with you through emails in the future.
Okay, yeah. So with that, let us bring this session to a close. Thanks, Duong, for spending so much time preparing for this talk and sharing your research with us. And thanks to the audience who I know has logged in from various parts of the world at probably odd hours. Thanks for being an attentive and supportive audience. Just to mention that the YouTube recording of this webinar, as with all other webinars, will be posted on the East-West Center website. And I'll also use this time to advertise our next talk on Thursday, July 20th at noon Hawaii time. The title of the talk is Last Days of the Mighty Mekong. The speaker is Dr. Brian Ellier, Director of the Stimson Center Southeast Asia Program, Energy, Water, and Sustainability Program. So do tune into that webinar as well. So again, really fascinating talk. Duong, thanks a lot, everyone. And look forward to more interaction and collaboration with our alumni. Thank you.
Thank you very much for everyone joining me today. Thank you, EWC Center, for having me, and I'm very happy to see you all today. Thank you very much.